To be honest, that evening the problem was my mother-in-law's dress. She wore a fitted dress that accentuated her figure. Every time she walked to the kitchen or sat on the sofa, my eyes would involuntarily follow her. I knew it was wrong. My mind understood, but my body was honest. I went into my room and locked the door. I had to deal with the turmoil alone. At first I tried to picture other women, actresses, strangers on the street, but it didn't help. Again and again, my mother-in-law's image surfaced in my mind. No, this wasn't right. I tried with all my strength to think of something else, but in the end, I kept thinking of her. After all, you can't always control what comes into your head. Just as my breathing grew heavier, I heard the creak of the door opening, but I had locked it. My mother-in-law, holding the freshly ironed shirt I was supposed to wear the next day, walked in and saw everything. Me sitting on the chair, my expression, my hands. It was a moment of disaster. "Sorry," she whispered. She quickly put the shirt on the bed. "Yes, well, we'll talk about this later." She paused at the door. Without turning around, she said in a trembling voice, "It's all right. Men are made that way." I never suspected that this incident would completely change our relationship. Before I begin the story in earnest, if you support me with a subscription and a like, it would mean a great deal. Now here is my story. My name is Daniel Harrison. I am 44 years old. Saying I'm a successful construction entrepreneur might sound boastful, but I started from nothing in the Midwest, moved to Chicago, and have run a mid-sized construction company for over 20 years. I live in a spacious penthouse in downtown Chicago and enjoy financial stability. But 18 months ago, I lost my wife, Eleanor, Ellie to everyone who loved her, in a car accident. Ellie was 31. People had worried about our 10-year age difference. "You might regret it later," they said countless times. But for me, my wife was my first and only love. Her bright, warm personality lit up my difficult life. When that light went out, I fell apart completely. I threw myself into work, but every time I came home to an empty house, emptiness swallowed me. The refrigerator was bare, the living room was deathly quiet, and the bed felt much too large. Is this how I would live now? With such thoughts, I fell asleep each night. After the funeral, my mother-in-law Margaret began visiting me often. I think besides grieving for Ellie, her only daughter, she simply couldn't bear to see me not eating or sleeping properly. "Dan, you have to eat," she said the first time she came. I couldn't answer, only nodded. Margaret silently opened the refrigerator and sighed. "How can you live like this? Ellie would worry about you from heaven." From that day, Margaret came 3 or 4 times a week. She cooked for me, did laundry, tidied the house. Sometimes she just sat with me in the living room, sharing the silence. We were the only 2 people who had lost the same person, and simply sharing our grief was a comfort. Margaret was also alone. My father-in-law had passed away 5 years earlier. "The living must go on living," she said one evening over dinner with a sad smile. And I felt something strange. The age difference between us was only 13 years. I called her my mother-in-law, but we were almost contemporaries. She had given birth to Ellie in her early 20s, and she still had a youthful, elegant appearance. Thanks to regular yoga and walking, at 57 she looked remarkably healthy and energetic. Months passed. At first I could barely eat, but little by little I began to enjoy the meals Margaret prepared. A routine took shape, forcing myself to go to work, working, coming home, having dinner with Margaret. Slowly it ordered my grief. It didn't disappear entirely, but it no longer suffocated me as before. One evening after dinner, while Margaret was washing dishes, I looked at her differently for the first time. She usually wore comfortable clothes at home, but that day she had on a skirt just above the knee. I saw her at the sink and unconsciously stared. "No, this isn't right," I told myself, quickly looking away, but my heart beat strangely. From then on, whenever Margaret came over, an awkward tension arose. Weeks passed. Margaret began visiting less often. From 3 or 4 times a week to once a week, then once every 2 weeks. I wonder why she hasn't come, I muttered, looking at the empty refrigerator. I missed her home cooking and our dinner conversations, but more than that, I missed her. I thought of calling but held back. She has her own life. She can't take care of me forever. Yet inside, I felt a void. Coming home from work, I hoped she would be there, but the house was always empty. More than a month went by. Then one Saturday evening, my phone rang. It was Margaret. It turned out her house in the suburbs was being demolished for redevelopment. She had received compensation, but hadn't yet found a new apartment, so she didn't know where to stay temporarily. "Come live with me," I offered without hesitation. "There are spare rooms. It's better than being alone." To be honest, I was very lonely living by myself. My spacious penthouse had 4 bedrooms, and the place felt empty. I thought that if Margaret were nearby, the emptiness after Ellie might be filled at least a little. Margaret thought for a long time. "Are you sure? It wouldn't be awkward?" "Not at all. If anything, I'd feel more at ease," I said. In the end, she accepted. She chose the guest bedroom farthest from mine, and we agreed to keep a respectful distance, go about our business during the day, have dinner together in the evening. The first few days went smoothly. We respected each other's routines. But living together brought strange changes. Margaret naturally took over the household chores. "Give me your dirty laundry. I'll wash it," she said. "Oh, you don't have to," I refused. "It's easier if I do it all together," she smiled. I began handing her my laundry. A few days later, neatly folded clean clothes, including my underwear, would be hanging on my doorknob. My face flushed. She had washed even my undershorts. At dinner, I awkwardly said, "Margaret, I'll wash my own underwear from now on." "Why? It's clean. It's just laundry," she laughed calmly. "We live together. We shouldn't be bothered by such small things." After that, Margaret continued washing all my clothes. At first, I was embarrassed, but gradually I got used to it. Perhaps getting used to it was the problem. Her touching, washing, folding my underwear became natural to me. Was this closeness subtly erasing boundaries? The real trouble began later. Waking up in the morning, I would see Margaret already in the kitchen making breakfast, standing in an apron, holding a frying pan. It felt so natural. I often saw her reading in the living room or watching series on the sofa. What caught my attention most was when she came back from an evening walk and sat drinking tea in the living room. She wore loose clothes at home, but sometimes she put on a dress or a skirt above the knee. When she casually crossed her legs on the sofa, I couldn't take my eyes off her smooth calves. "No, not right," I scolded myself. But her healthy, energetic figure kept drawing my gaze. It was hard to believe she was 57. At night, I found it harder and harder to fall asleep. My masculine side, dormant since Ellie's passing, was slowly waking, and it was directed at Margaret. One day I began to study her closely, her eyes, the shape of her lips, the expression when she smiled. Margaret looks like Ellie, I thought. No, more precisely, Ellie looked like Margaret. Ellie was a younger version of Margaret, and Margaret was a mature version of Ellie. In that moment of realization, I became even more confused. Was this longing for my wife or something else? I couldn't find an answer. About a month into our living together, I became more and more aware of Margaret's presence. Whenever she bent over while cleaning, I glimpsed smooth skin beneath her skirt. When she sat with her legs neatly crossed and her hand accidentally touched mine, my heart would race. Even at work, thoughts of Margaret wouldn't leave me. What would Margaret like today? Maybe I should buy her some fruit on the way home. I found myself strange for thinking that way, and I looked forward to coming home. Earlier, I had dreaded the empty house. Now I was glad to return to where Margaret was. "Welcome back." Opening the door, I would see Margaret smiling warmly. "Dinner is ready. Go wash up and come eat." Those words were incredibly comforting. One Saturday afternoon when I was off work, Margaret did yoga in the living room. She laid out a mat and moved slowly, gracefully. She wore leggings and a tank top that outlined her figure. Pretending to drink coffee in the kitchen, I watched her. Every movement, every bend, every stretch did not escape my gaze. It was hard to believe this was a 57-year-old woman's body. Firm hips, a slim waist, elegant shoulders. Margaret really was beautiful. At that moment, she turned her head and looked at me. "Do you need something?" "Oh no, just looking." I quickly looked away. She smiled. "Bring me some coffee, please. I'm thirsty." "Of course," I said. I brought the coffee and handed it to her. She sat on the mat and took the cup. My heart raced again. What am I doing? I went back to my room, but Margaret's image stayed in my head. That night I couldn't sleep. Her image surfaced again and again, doing yoga, cooking, crossing her legs on the sofa. What am I doing? I buried my face in the pillow. I knew this was wrong, but my heart was already out of control. A week later, I could no longer deny my feelings. Every time Margaret did housework, smiled, or spoke, my heart fluttered. Especially when she wore a skirt above the knee. I didn't know where to look. At work, I couldn't concentrate. Looking at documents, I would suddenly think of Margaret. During meetings, I often drifted off. This will lead to trouble, I scolded myself, but it didn't help. It seemed Margaret had noticed something too. She sensed that my gaze had changed. When our eyes met, she would look away first, and she seemed to try to keep her distance. Even at dinner, we no longer chatted as easily as before. Awkward silences often fell between us. It happened on a Saturday evening. That day at work had been especially stressful. Coming home, I couldn't settle down. After dinner, I went to my room, took a shower, lay down, but sleep wouldn't come. Again, thoughts of Margaret. I remembered what she had worn at dinner, a dress just above the knee. Every time she walked to the kitchen, that image drew my attention. I got up and sat on the chair by the bed. This isn't right, but my body responded. It was the first time I had felt this way since Ellie passed. I walked to the door, turned the lock, a click, locked. I calmed down a little and sat again. I had to deal with this inner storm alone. I closed my eyes, took a breath, and focused on a long-forgotten sensation. At first, I tried to think of other things, actresses, strangers on the street, but it was useless. Margaret's image kept surfacing. Margaret in her evening dress in the kitchen. Margaret crossing her legs on the sofa, her smile. No, not right, I thought, but my body was honest. The more I thought of Margaret, the stronger the reaction. I surrendered to the image. My breathing quickened. And then, knock, knock. "Dan?" Margaret's voice. I froze, frightened, and couldn't answer. Creak. The door opened. It hadn't been fully locked. She was holding the shirt I needed for tomorrow. Margaret stepped into the room and stopped. She saw me sitting on the chair, my expression, my hands. Her eyes widened. "Oh," she breathed. "Sorry." I quickly turned away, my face burning. Hers was flushed too. "Sorry, I knocked, but you didn't answer, and I—" The shirt slipped from her hands. We both stared at it on the floor. "I'm so sorry," I said, unable to look at her. She quickly picked up the shirt and put it on the bed. "Yes, well, we'll talk later." She hurried to the door but paused for a moment, as if catching her breath. Without turning around, she said in a trembling voice, "It's all right. Men are made that way." The door closed quietly. I collapsed onto the chair. What shame! My face wouldn't cool down. I covered my face with my hands. How would I face her tomorrow morning? But then a strange thought crossed my mind. When Margaret had seen me, her eyes held not only surprise. There was something else. Could it be? I shook my head, but my heart beat strangely, faster. That night, I didn't sleep a wink. The next morning was incredibly awkward. I got up later than usual, afraid to meet her, but eventually I had to. I went to the kitchen. Margaret was making breakfast. "Morning, sit down and eat," she said naturally, as always. I carefully sat at the table. "Sleep well?" she asked. Yes, and you, Margaret? Fine. We ate in awkward silence. That day at work, I couldn't focus. Again and again, I replayed the night before. Her face, her words. At 6 in the evening, I hurried home. My heart pounded as I opened the door. Margaret was sitting in the living room on the sofa, not in the kitchen as usual. Welcome back. Thank you. Sit down, we need to talk about last night, she said. I sat across from her. Margaret, I'm very sorry. It's all right, you're not to blame. She waved her hand. I understand, living alone, it's hard for a man, but I decided to be completely honest. I was thinking of you when it happened. Her eyes widened. What did you say? At first, it wasn't like that. I tried to think of other things, honestly, I said without raising my head. But then I kept thinking only of you. Living together, seeing you every day, at some point I started noticing you differently. My voice trembled. I know this is wrong. You're my wife's mother. I'm your son-in-law. But, she asked quietly, but I couldn't suppress my instincts. The way you do housework, sit on the sofa, wear skirts above the knee, all of it drew my attention. Margaret was silent. As a man, I couldn't help it. First, I felt guilt toward Ellie, toward you. I covered my face with my hands, but it only grew stronger. Even at work, I thought only of you, looked forward to coming home. This isn't just loneliness. Margaret was silent for a long time. Then she said softly, I've thought about it too. Living together, we can't avoid such feelings. My heart beat faster. It's not easy for a man alone. You must have been struggling every day. She looked me in the eyes. And what I saw in your room, it shocked me. Her voice trembled. But afterward, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I'm a woman too. I couldn't hold back any longer. I took her hand. Margaret. Dan, she slowly nodded. Don't hold back today. I feel the same. My heart stopped. Margaret, really? Yes, she squeezed my hand. Let's not think about anything tonight. I stood up carefully. She stood too. We went to the bedroom so close we could hear each other's heartbeat. That night we crossed a line. After more than a year, I felt alive again. The next morning I woke up beside Margaret. Sunlight filtered through the curtains. She was still asleep, her face peaceful. We've done something, I thought, but there was no regret. Instead, I felt warmth. Margaret opened her eyes. We looked at each other in silence. Do you regret it? She asked first. No. And you, Margaret? No. She buried her face in my chest. I'm happy. I held her tightly. So am I. We were no longer mother-in-law and son-in-law. We were a man and a woman. From that day, our relationship completely changed. By day, we kept a respectful distance. By night, we sought each other. Even at work, I felt different. Before, I hadn't wanted to go home. Now I hurried. Margaret was waiting for me. At 6 in the evening, I would rush back. Taking the elevator, my heart pounded. Opening the door, I would see her in the kitchen. Welcome home. You're early. Yes, I wanted to come home. She smiled. Go take a shower. Dinner will be ready soon. Evenings became warmer. We touched naturally. Our eyes met. We smiled. After dinner, we would sit in the living room, drink wine, watch series, and naturally hold hands, lean against each other. Margaret, I'm happy. So am I. We would kiss again. Days passed, weeks, a month. We grew closer. Margaret became part of my life, and I part of hers. On weekends, we shopped together, walked in the park, went to the cinema. Outside, we were in-laws. At home, we were lovers. 2 months went by. Our relationship deepened beyond the physical. I fell in love with Margaret. If at first it was desire to ease loneliness, now it was genuine affection. Margaret, shall we take a trip this weekend? I proposed one evening. Where? A quiet place, just the two of us. She hesitated. Is that all right? Yes, no one will know us. She nodded. That weekend, we flew to a quiet inn on the shore of Lake Michigan. We walked on the beach holding hands. No one knew us. We were free. At night, we sat on the terrace, listening to the waves. "Can anyone be this happy?" Margaret whispered. "Yes, we deserve to be happy." I took her hand. She looked at me. "Thank you. Thank you." We kissed and went inside. The next morning, we woke early and watched the sunrise together, sitting on the shore. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" "Yes, but you are more beautiful than the sunrise." I looked at her. "I love you." I said it for the first time. Her eyes widened, and tears came. "I love you too." We embraced on the beach. That was the happiest moment. About 3 weeks after we returned from the lake, Margaret's phone rang one evening. Her face grew serious. "Yes, all right." When she hung up, she looked at me. "Victoria is coming back to the States, your older sister-in-law." I was stunned. Victoria, Tori, Ellie's older sister. She had emigrated to America 20 years ago, married an American businessman, and lived there. She couldn't even come to Ellie's funeral because of travel restrictions. Suddenly? Yes, she says she's finishing her business and coming back for good. She worries about me, an old woman. Margaret's voice trembled. "She'll stay with me." My heart tightened. If Tori lived with Margaret, then Margaret would have to leave my house. "What will we do?" Margaret gripped my hand. "We'll have to be careful." I nodded, but my heart was heavy. A week later, Victoria arrived. We met her at O'Hare, Margaret, me, and Tori. Tori looked stylish and confident, in her late 30s but appearing younger. Her manners were slightly freer due to her long time abroad. "Hello, brother-in-law. Long time no see." "Yes, it has been," I said awkwardly. Tori studied Margaret. "Mom, you look wonderful. You've gotten younger, better skin, brighter eyes." Margaret tried to remain composed, but I was tense. In the car, Tori asked, "Mom, where are you staying now?" "With Dan, temporarily, because of the redevelopment." Tori's gaze sharpened. "Then can I stay there too? I don't want to waste money on a hotel and I want to be with you." Margaret and I froze, but we couldn't refuse. "All right," Margaret said reluctantly. From that day, everything changed. Tori lived with us and we lost our freedom. We couldn't be together at night. We had to hide even a knowing glance. I started coming home late, claiming work, while Margaret spent time with Tori. A week passed. We hadn't been alone once. Tori was always home, watching. But old habits are hard to break. One morning, as I was struggling with my tie, Margaret came over and fixed it. It was such a natural gesture, but her touch was too familiar, her face too close. "There," she smiled, tapping my tie. I flinched and stepped back. Tori was watching from the living room. Another evening after dinner, Margaret was washing dishes. I went to help. Passing a plate, I touched her hand. It lasted only a few seconds, but we didn't let go. Then footsteps in the hallway. Tori coming out of the bathroom. I quickly stepped away. Another night, while watching television, Margaret fell asleep on the sofa. Her head began to droop, and I instinctively offered my shoulder. She naturally leaned against me. Tori, drinking water in the kitchen, saw us. I gently woke Margaret. "Margaret, go to your room." "Oh, sorry," she said, standing quickly. Such dangerous moments continued. A month later, Tori called me aside. "Dan, can we talk?" My heart jumped. Had she found out? But Tori spoke of something else. "Dan, we found an apartment. Mom and I will move next week. My husband will arrive soon, and we need to prepare the house. Mom can't live with you forever." "Oh, I see," I said, mixed feelings inside. I wasn't sure if Tori had guessed or if it was simply time. That night, after Tori went to her room, Margaret quietly called to me. "Dan, did you hear?" "Yes, you're moving." She looked out the window. "Yes, I think it's time." Her voice trembled. "We need to end this." My heart sank, though I had expected it. "Dan, I don't know if Tori noticed anything, but it doesn't matter." Margaret's eyes filled with tears. You are still young. You should start a new life. Age doesn't matter. Yes, it does. She looked at me. Thanks to you, I felt alive again. I became a woman again. Thank you. But now I have to let you go, for your sake. I held back tears. Margaret, forgive me. And thank you for the happiness. She squeezed my hand. Be happy. Find a good person. I embraced her. Those were our last embraces. A week later, Margaret and Tori moved to their new apartment. On moving day, I helped carry boxes. While Tori stepped away for a moment, Margaret and I spoke for the last time. Live well, Margaret said, taking my hand. And you, Margaret? I'll be fine. She smiled, though her eyes were moist. Promise me you'll find a good person and be happy again. I promise, I nodded. Our eyes met, and we smiled silently. Thank you. Thank you. We understood each other without words. The moving truck drove away. I stood watching until it disappeared. Tori came up to me. Brother-in-law, find a good person and live happily. I bowed slightly. I will. She patted my shoulder. From that day I was alone again. But this time it was different. Warm memories remained in my heart. The time spent with Margaret, moments of comfort and affection. It was not guilt. It was a beautiful memory. A few months later, at a company event, I met a woman around my own age, warm and bright. I cautiously approached her. It was a new beginning. Margaret sometimes sent me a message. How are you? Good. You take care too. Yes. Be happy. Yes, you too, Margaret. We let each other go, but we did not forget. Sometimes when I think of Margaret, I smile. Thank you, Margaret. Thank you, Dan. And so our story quietly ended, without guilt, without regret. Only warm memories remained. Thank you for staying with me through this long story. If you listened all the way to the end, please subscribe, leave a like, and a comment. It helps more than you know.